Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. What are you doing with that cape? I'm just coming in. I'm a cape salesman. My name is Lando Calrissian, and I sell capes. Well, I already have a cape. Would you like a cowl? No thank you, but that cowl looks great on you. But just don't wear a scowl with that cowl, cause that would be foul. I tend to agree with you on that. You know, some might call that a dad joke. Dad joke. Well, back in my day, puns were the most serious offenses you could possibly commit. Also, the Riddler was always telling puns. Stupid, ridiculous puns. Would you say that he had nice puns? I wouldn't say that, but you can. I just did. Well, congratulations. Would you like some anti-shark repellent? What's anti-shark repellent? That's when you it attracts sharks. No. Okay, well. So, you want to get out of my cave? Hello, everybody. What's up? I'm Aristotle, Full Throttle. Sitting out here having a coffee. Hey, how are you? How are you today? What's going on? Did you see the moon and the stars and the sun? Almost every day they're out there. I was looking at the sunset yesterday, and I said, "Can you believe this happens almost every day?" This is a great song. Raccoon Raiders. No one ever fails. You know what's funny? Raccoon Raiders. It's great. 420 artist. See, he gets the brunt of the poison darts. Hey, you know what's funny about that song, the Chip 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 and Dale song? I imagine that they had like 10 different versions that they came up with for the theme song for the Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers, which was like a 80s, early 90s cartoon for Disney, I think. And I imagine they came up with like 10 different theme songs, right? In an afternoon. Because this is how the jingle writers work. They're just like writing anything. And they're just like, when there's danger, there's Dip and Dale, let's snap our fingers and tap our foot, like every scene in every movie where they're writing a song, where they're just standing around going, and then here's the song. Sometimes it happens that way. But, you know, it's funny to me because they would have to produce an entire song. So that I don't know how they used to pitch it, but they probably just went into the office and were like, 2 or 3 people just going, Chip and Dale. And then there was probably some producer like, All right, what else you got? And then they were probably like, Chip 'n Dale, Rescue Rangers, I'm here to save. You know? But that's the one that's stuck. For good reason. It's catchy. I'm just saying it's the cream rises to the top of the crop. And that one, it's timeless. It's a timeless song. We all sing it to our children. Do we? What's trending, ladies and gentlemen? Life. It's bigger than you, and you are not me. The lengths that I would go to, the distance in your eyes. I've said too much. Those are lyrics, ladies and gentlemen. Those are lyrics for a song called Losing My Religion by the REMs. It's good. It's a good song. It's about, I don't know what that song is about. But I can't think it's literally about losing your religion. It's probably in the couch cushions. Just go to church on Sunday, you'll find it. I don't know what that song is about. Does anybody know what losing my religion is about? Is it about, like, getting older? You've done lost your religion. You done lost your religion, Ron. Did you try to find it again?
Here it is. My most likable song ever. Coca-Cola, lipstick ring, go dance all night, dance all night. Kiss me, Nefertiti. Lipstick, kiss me, lipstick ring, go that's the way you like it.
This is your most likable song ever?
Yeah.
People will love it.
People will love it. You know, Ron, if you're fighting for truth, justice, and the American way, that's all the religion you need, right, Ron? I'm watching the show. I'm watching Lois, Superman and Lois, and it's on HBO now, which is great because I almost bought every episode on Amazon, and I already have a subscription to HBO, and I'm like, what am I doing? I could just watch it on HBO. It all dropped, the whole season. So I got through, I didn't get through, I enjoyed 5 episodes straight the other day when I was editing photos. Stipe has repeatedly stated that song, the song's lyrics are not about religion. The phrase losing my religion is an expression from the southern region of the United States that means losing one's temper or civility or feeling frustrated and desperate. I'm done losing my religion on this one. I could picture it. I could definitely picture it. The new Star Trek is on HBO. Oh, cool. So I don't have to get that CBS Now or whatever subscription. Interesting, Ron. There's a lot of things that people say in the South that's interesting like that. You know, they'll say, "Bless your heart." That's a fun one, right? Oh, Ron telling us about the Southern bless his heart. It doesn't mean what you think it means. It's mean. That's a mean thing to say. I feel like people would say that, but they're like, "Oh, look at him with his little show and his afro, bless his heart." That's what they would say about me in this show. Are you watching the new Star Trek? Star Trek Discovery? Is that the one you're talking about? Because I have watched the first 7 episodes of that, I think. Is that still on? Is that still going? I still haven't watched Picard yet, and I think there's a season 3 coming, 2? You're all caught up on Titans. I say that's is there a new season coming out of that too? I think I'm far behind. I did watch Jupiter's Ascending, or what was that show called? Jupiter's Cousin, that got canceled after 1 season. Invincible season 2, that's coming, right? I still have to finish the first season of The Boys. I paused The Boys because I wanted to watch it with Kelsey, but then we started watching it, and then because I rewounded like 4 episodes, but I got to go back and it's out. But there are weekly episodes. Are they strong weekly episodes? What happened? I played Dreamcast. It's okay to be incorrect. It's okay to be wrong. People make mistakes. People make mistakes. It turns out. Turns out mistakes are a thing that people makes. You might have noticed. Remember that poster, God Don't Make Junk? It was like the really ugly alien. big feet. I love that poster. God don't make junk. How do you explain Carrot Top? Yeah, it turns out it's part of the human experience. Yeah, the human experience is like, I go off on this a lot, but because it's a problem we're having right now, I think, socially, and I think we need to address it, which is, you can make a mistake. That's how humans learn. Our brains are not, they don't just do exactly the right thing, and the right thing changes. I just heard a phrase this morning that, I mean, fundamentally, you would think that there are certain universal rules that happen for every generation. But I heard a phrase this morning that really stuck with me, which was, the past is a foreign country. They do things differently there. So when people do things that had made a mistake in the past, and then we're judging them by today's standards, think of that as the exact same as judging another culture by your culture's standards. It's because that's what it is. It's exactly that. You're just judging another culture by your own culture's standards. That's why this cancel culture, guys, ladies and gentlemen, people out of all ages, when someone said something in 2011, now it's 2021, even though 2011 seems like it was yesterday to some of us, it's 10 years later, it's a decade later. And then when we're digging up things that people tweeted on basically a 3-year-old social media platform, Twitter was started in like 2008 or 2007 or something like that. So when people started like saying things in the tweet machine, they weren't quite understanding that 10 years later that their fleeting thought would be held against them and ruin their career. So people, I'm very passionate about this subject because I think it's very prevalent right now that people are like, you should know everything all of the time. Even in the future, you need to know the future standards. Am I right? Am I right? I get fired up about this. It's not just the coffee. You hear about the Marvel issue? Yes, Uncle Ron. I Play Dream says, yes, turns out it's part of the human experience. Uncle Ron says, you hear about the Marvel issue. If you're talking about the Marvel issue in the fact that there are people who were created characters, I'm not sure I heard about it, not sure what I think, but people were hired to be story writers and artists for like day gigs and stuff like that for Marvel, apparently. And some of those characters became timeless and they're being used in Marvel movies and stuff. So some of the estates of the artists that came up with the characters are trying to seek compensation, which I don't know, maybe they get a shout out, maybe they get a point or two here and there. You know, they came up with it, but also here's the dichotomy of that. It's like there are certain things when you sign on to a company is like a brain trust sometimes, and they're like, well, every character that you come up with while you're here using our platform is owned by this platform, is owned by this company. But then afterward, you can go create your own thing and copyright your own things. But while we're hiring you under contract, your characters and your intellectual property is our intellectual property, which is kind of why you get hired, right? So it's one of those things. For instance, the guys who invented Twitter, speaking of coming up with Twitter, the guys who came up with that, they used to work at Google, and then they left Google because they had a non-compete contract, a clause in their contract, so they couldn't come up with any other like sort of competing social media or anything like that. Then like 3 years later, they magically invented Twitter after working for Google. So they were outside of their contract. Hey, what's up, Uncle Ron? How are you today?
I'm going to argue with you on this because I think that I'm fine, by the way. I think that the creators they don't want. All right, their estates don't want them to stop making, like Steve Ditko, a guy who co-created Spider-Man. Their estate doesn't want them to stop making Spider-Man movies. They just want a bigger piece of the pie because when they created them, they never thought they were going to be this big. You know what I mean? It's kind of like with the strike that's about to happen.
What's the strike? Is there a strike? I don't know about
Yeah,
the
oh
strike.
yeah.
See, I was just hearing bits and pieces. I was pretty busy this week. But tell us about this
the-
strike.
The strike basically is if you like TV and movies, it's going to be going away for a while if things don't change, because I'm sure you've been on sets. You see how the crew gets treated.
Oh, yeah. That strike you're talking about. Yes. I thought it might have been like a writer strike. No, I actually did hear about this, that we're about to stop productions, essentially. But yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I did hear a little bit about that.
Strike. I support that strike. I got friends that work on crews. Yeah, I got a buddy who's a Steadicam operator, and you've seen those Steadicam operators. They have to carry around like 75 pounds on their chest, and they're working, 14, 15, 16 hours a day, and it's just ridiculous.
That it does shock me. There's a guy I know, Jack. What's his last name? He's a DP, and he's always got a steady camera on, and he is like emaciated because he doesn't realize, he works so hard. He's running around with this camera on his back all day long, and he's got this huge camera, and he's running around, and it's just he's so engaged in the process that after 12 hours, like after a couple weeks, it was like, Jack, you got to eat something. you're running your body down to the ground here. But yeah, like people on set are definitely working. And also there was the woman, she was a camera assistant, and she died on the train tracks shooting that documentary. And here in Hollywood, every slate that you see, every clapboard has her name on it. Everybody puts that name on the clapboard. You'll see it. And it's because it's always to remind us that no one should ever get hurt, let alone die on a set. There should be safety precautions. There should be stuff like that. So yeah, I do agree that people need to really have extra precaution on the set. It's make-believe. It should be fun, right? Ron, you're working on a movie.
It should be safe.
I am actually done with it. We finished on the 18th, but I ended up having to go to the hospital while we were shooting, so I don't have director credits.
What?
On this one. Yeah, because I got sick. I got heat stroke. And so, so I ended up in the hospital. But I'm still the producer. I'm still the David O. Selznick of the thing, so I have final cut.
Well, that's good.
Which at the end of the day, let's be real, that's what you want, right? This final cut.
Yeah. So definitely, it's something. Well, you want to tell that to David Lynch, or Ridley Scott.
I just want, I almost directed Return of the Jedi, and George Lucas showed me what a Wookiee was, and I was like, what the fuck is that?
But what's funny is everybody, you were talking about how no one should ever, die on a set, and for Trauma of all people, all right, to have they have 3 rules of production.
Yep.
Number 1, safety to humans. Number 2, safety to people's property. And number 3, make a good movie. So while 1 and 2 are always adhered to, 3, so much all the time.
Right. It's like you're here to have fun, but it's interesting you say that, because Quentin Tarantino famously will have everyone do like another take, an extra take, because he wants to get it right, and he'll have this mantra on set, and he has the entire cast and crew repeat it, which is, we're going again. Why? Because we love making movies. It's like this big chant that he has everybody do, because
while we were in pre-production doing crowdfunding and stuff, I ended up in the hospital sick because of all the stress I was under, because I was the only one doing anything. So Quentin Tarantino can bite my fat ass.
Quentin Tarantino is very much a hard ass as far as a director.
Okay. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Joe Pesci's character from a Lethal Weapon series.
He
reminds
really
me of Leo Getz.
He really is a very similar thing. And David Lynch is great. David Lynch is great because he's got his daily weather report. Today in LA, it's going to be 89 degrees. Cloudy, but later on it'll be blue skies and golden sunshine all along the way. Today,
I actually had his masterclass.
I want to. Oh, yeah.
And I have Werner Herzog's, which is I'm assuming once I watch it, because I have to get a bunch. You have to get a bunch of stuff to like to do it. You have to have certain movies of theirs, and I'm assuming the Werner Herzog one is just do whatever you can to make the film. Go ahead. I want you to go ahead and steal. Have you heard the story about the permit story from Fitzcarraldo?
I haven't heard the story.
This is great. Story? So they needed a permit to shoot where they were shooting. I mean, you've heard of Fitzcarraldo, right? With the putting the "I want my apple."
Is he related to Greg Giraldo?
No, I wish. No, it was with Klaus Kinski. So that right there should,
That's amazing.
And that guy's So they were in South America shooting, and they needed a permit. And this authority guy comes up and he's like, we need to see your permit. And Herzog's like, we have the permit, but we don't have it here. Give me 2 days. I will go back to my hotel in the city and get you the permit. Okay, fine. So he comes back and he shows him the permit and everything's fine. He took those 2 days to forge a permit because they didn't have one, just so they could keep shooting.
That's amazing. Yeah, well,
it's a very Herzog thing to do.
There's definitely like a lot of rule bending in, especially if you're just shooting. You kind of quote steal shots. Like for instance, I remember being in Brooklyn and like one of my first movies that I was a PA on, and they would be like, they would send me to when I was a locations scout or whatever, a locations assistant. I would go to. There was an office above David Letterman, above the Late Show with David Letterman, and you went upstairs and it was the permit office for New York City, and there were like 11 typewriters. It's crazy. And you would have to type out, you'd have to align the permit sheet on the typewriter and type out
where you're talking about our stuff.
Yes, it was so crazy. Welcome 420 artists.
I had to chime in on that. Thank you. I had to chime in on that because I remember how terrible that was, and if it didn't line up, they'd get mad.
Yeah, you'd have to get a permit that way. But it was funny because we would be on the street in Brooklyn or something like that, and they would be like, well, there's Borough Hall. We could go to Manhattan right now, go upstairs, get a permit, get it approved, or we could just run up on the steps of Borough Hall and shoot this right now. So they would do that. And after the fact, when the movie's out and it's all cut together and you see that, there's Borough Hall for Brooklyn in the background there. We're using it as a location, but we didn't pay for it and we didn't get it permitted. You steal shots for the art sometimes because
when we were shooting, while I was still there, we were shooting on railroad tracks, which are essentially not public property, but they're not owned by the people who have property around them. And
it's property of the railroad, technically, right?
Well, yeah, but like the railroad's going to be checking up on what someone's doing on their track. They don't give a damn. They're just trying to keep the railroad industry going at this point. But so we were there and we were shooting. No one had a problem about us shooting on the railroad tracks, but they had an issue with, like, we were in the street next to their business. And then they were they were closed. There was nobody there. They were worried we were going to graffiti the place. And I had to talk to them. I'm like, no. We're putting the graffiti in post. You don't have to worry about that. And then before I got real sick and I had to go, a cop pulled up and I'm like, oh, for Christ's sake, I don't have time for this. And they're just like, oh, well, what's going on over here? I saw all these people. So I just sent the guy who eventually took over as director. He went over to talk to him. And he's like, so do you want to be an extra in the movie? Because I'm thinking, let's be honest here, a cop zombie is kind of a nice social twist.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, they do the whole, oh, no, I'm just checking to see what you guys are doing. You placate their ego for a little bit, and they go away. But then people were like, well, you needed to stay hydrated. And I'm like, well, look, I couldn't keep like water in one hand and a $2,000 monitor in my other and worry about dropping it. And I'm not going to hand it to an extra so I can drink water. I'm like, here, person who's here not getting paid, hold this $2,000 piece of equipment so I can take a drink of water.
Right. Yeah. Well,
not gonna care.
You do, Ron. You got to drink the water. You know what we can do? We can set you up with an intravenous drip so that while you're doing that.
The the funny thing is there was talk of it raining that day. So I was looking out for like canopies, like not tents, but like you know what I'm talking about.
The little pop-up tents. Yeah. Or
like where it's more like you see them at like picnics and stuff. People put them up just so above the food or whatever. Even though bugs can fly in sideways. And I was like, I thought, maybe if we had one of those, the sun, because it wasn't necessarily hot, but the sun was hitting the concrete and coming right back up.
Yeah, doubles it. Makes it worse.
There are pictures, behind the scenes pictures, where you can see my face just getting ready to bake.
Oh, no. Share those pictures with us. Send those in show and tell. This is Ron
of course.
Getting fried on the sidewalk.
Yes, exactly. And then my DP was like, I've never worked with a director who sat down, and I'm like, so how many films have you worked on?
Yeah.
They all sit down.
Yeah, it's like have you never seen what happened? John Ford would sit down the entire time, and he's one of the greatest directors ever. Hitchcock, they carried in a lazy boy for him.
Oh, really?
For crying out loud. Yeah, he never got up at all.
I love the story. You reminded me of Klaus Kinski before, Ron, we were talking about Werner Herzog, and you were saying how you have the master class, which is crazy because Werner Herzog has this great story about Klaus Kinski discharging a gun on set and actually hitting one of the extras. And he's like, it was no big deal. He only shot off a finger. It was just a little finger.
Well, apparently on the set of Fitzcarraldo, on the set of Fitzcarraldo, one of the natives that lived in the jungle went up to Klaus Kinski, or not Klaus Kinski, but Werner Herzog, and says, "Do you want us to kill him?"
Oh my god!
Because Klaus Kinski, because he was that much of a pain in the butt, and they were just like, "Do you want us to kill him? Because we will kill him." And you know,
no problem. But no skin off on that.
Yeah, right. We'll just use him for whatever.
Sure.
And
out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then he's like, no, we are making a movie and we need to keep him here. Did you ever see Werner Herzog on Parks and Recreation?
I have not seen that. That sounds amazing. What's up, Ange? What's up, Madison Mahood? Welcome.
Aubrey Plaza actually tells a story about how she freaked him out.
How did she freak him out?
She got too dark for him.
Really?
How do you get too dark for Werner Herzog?
Yeah. Wow, that's incredibly dark. Well, 420 artists.
Your humor's dark too.
420. It sounds like you're underwater. Is there? Do you have a mic?
Do I still sound underwater? Shh.
Yep.
Good Lord, over there! What are you doing? Sorry.
What is going on with your microphone? We might have to submerge it. Let me play Ange and 420's intro. That's better.
Say baby.
Ange's intro.
You know what happened? I put a hat on with earbuds. My bad.
But I'm not. What? But I can. Baby. Shut up and give us your money.
Give us your money. Welcome, Ange and 420 artist in the chat. 420. What have you been up to?
I've been doing lots of recreation and shopping for new graphics tablets, and I was feeling Ron pretty hardcore and was talking about a $2,000 monitor under his arm.
$2,000 monitor, yeah.
Literally, what do? You can't just put it down in the middle of what you're doing.
Exactly,
yeah.
And that's the thing is I asked him, I'm like, could you have gotten a stand for it maybe? And he's like, yeah, but that would have cost more money. And
right.
I was like, well, okay.
How expensive is the hospital visit?
Well, I have my insurance that covered everything, but it's and we ended up getting we ended up renting for the day. We ended up with what was it? The Blackmagic Ursa 4.6K, the monitor, a bunch of SSDs, and a bunch of others, like a Dana Dolly and all sorts of other stuff. And we only needed I was like, it was $450 for the whole thing for the day.
Not bad.
But it's like, would the extra $50 have gotten me a stand?
Maybe.
Right.
You know, I mean.
Or you could.
They never worked with the director who sat down before.
Yeah, and so I mean, I had to sit here and keep yelling for the DP to come grab the monitor, you know. And I'm like, you got to hold this because I'm not giving it to anybody else.
Right.
The thing that kills me about the quote when somebody said that they never worked with a director who sat down before, and I'm thinking there's a whole thing called the director's chair. Why would you have a chair?
That's true.
Director's chair if nobody sits down.
I talked to some another director, and he was like, "Well, you got to stand right next to the camera," and I'm like, "No, because I want to see how it's going to be framed."
Yes. I was just talking about this recently because the video assist, you guys know who invented the video assist, right? Where you could like look at what's going through the camera lens while sitting back so you can actually see the framing and how everything's shot before waiting for the dailies. Because back in the day, you had to film the thing, send it to be processed, and by the end of the day or the next morning is what you saw, what you shot before lunch.
You're looking at it with a magnifying glass sometimes, right?
so none
I've
other
never
than...
shot on film, so...
Right. Well, film was like a whole thing, but Jerry Lewis invented the video assist, which was you can see, lady, you could see on the monitor what is going into the camera lens. Because back then, Ron, it was exactly that. You had to stand next to the camera and look what was going on in front of you and trust that your camera operator or your cinematographer or even you as a director looking through the lens is getting what's happening in front of you, and then you wouldn't know until the next day. So,
and now they have this fancy thing called Video Village.
Yep, Video Village, where you hang out, and you want to. That's true. You want to see how it's going to turn out, and you want to see one of the coolest before it's done. Exactly, one of the coolest experiences I had. One of the first experiences here in LA was I was working on a series of short films starring the late great, also dead to the world, Kevin Spacey. He used to be great, but it turns out he's awful. He's an awful person.
He turned out to be awful, but he was a great actor, though.
He was a great actor, but
But it's one of those things. Can you separate the art from the artist? Because there are episodes of the Cosby Show I want to go back and watch, but all I can think about is how this guy made himself a gynecologist, and nobody picked up on it.
I know. How creepy is that? It's like, wait a minute. Now the Cosby Show is completely different and framed different. Even back then, I was like, okay, OBGYN, that seems like a pretty successful gig. But then you like, you learn.
That's why he has money and has that nice house.
And he's living in Brooklyn Heights. But yeah. With Kevin Spacey, though, it was really cool because he was basically a 1 or 2 take wonder. Because he was a professional for many years, Oscar winner. So while I was doing set photography, I would be like, shooting, standing next to the camera, shooting what was in front of it. But then I would like go over and walk and look at the monitor or look at the monitor on the camera. And he was so good that you could just look at the monitor and it felt like you were watching the show. You were already watching the movie, just because that's how good he could just deliver on every take, which
Well, I don't like having to do more than a couple takes because I think that you lose the authenticity. So when you hear about and I love David Fincher, but when you hear about him doing 80, 90 takes on something, or Kubrick doing that many takes, it's like, how do you lose all like the authenticity and the spontaneity of it? I mean, it's like just because you're a perfectionist.
That's true. It's funny you say that because Mindhunter is a great show. Do you know if Mindhunter is coming back? Does anybody know if Mindhunter?
I don't think so.
Oh, it's such a good show. David
Fincher.
Fincher.
Because apparently it was leading up to BTK, and I was very.
That was the overarching story, was the BTK, and they kept jumping forward every 5 years or something like that, which was really, it was really interesting because they were going to catch us up to that whole thing. I'd really love for that show to come back, but David Fincher brought that to Netflix and directed the first episode. I think he directs a couple of episodes throughout the 2 seasons. And the very first episode of Mindhunter is unwatchable for me for that very reason, Ron, is that it just felt so lifeless because David Fincher was very...
Almost too perfect?
Almost too perfect, and it just felt just dead. Like I'm watching a show that the story was cool and what they were saying was interesting, but every actor just seemed completely exhausted in every shot.
He did the same thing with House of Cards because he was a co-creator on that too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But that's what apparently he's got OCD. He's got a severe OCD issue. So there's some element of that plays into his work, because he's deathly afraid of making a mistake or doing something badly. And I was listening to Jodie Foster actually. Yeah, he's got severe anxiety about things like that. And he was talking to Jodie Foster, and I remember I was listening to an interview with Jodie Foster recently, and she was talking about David Fincher would call her on the phone, because she's a great director. She's got some really good movies that she's made. And he'd be like, I can't do it. I think this is the last movie I can ever do, because he'd just be so overwhelmed. Ron, do you feel that pressure? Do you like?
It's like you're in my brain.
Yeah.
Right now, I have the exact same issues. Like I was just before I came on here, I was sitting here thinking this is the last movie I can do. I can't do this. I can't keep doing this. Well, a lot of it is I'm doing it on my own. You know, like when it comes to like raising the money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm trying to compare myself to anybody else, but when you see other campaigns going on to raise money and they're looking for way more, and they started around the same time as you and they have way more than you do, you're kind of like, well, what am I doing wrong? And then you realize you don't have boobs, and you're like, okay, that makes sense. It's like when you're the producer who's in charge of funding, the producer who's in charge of casting and finding all the people that you need, like extras and all that kind of stuff. When you're the director and the writer, and you're you got to help find locations, and you got to do this and you got to do that, it becomes very, very, very overwhelming, and you get anxiety over everything being perfect. And I look at the stills that we got from the editor. Thank God I'm not having to edit it. I'd probably put my head through a wall. But when I look at the stills, I'm like, okay, I'm wondering. I look at it, I'm like, what could we have done differently with this? Even though I have no control over what happened, And I sat there, and right after I found out I wasn't going to be getting director credit for this, I lost my mind. I had a knee-jerk reaction, because when you're an indie film, you get screwed over a lot. So I immediately thought I was getting my baby taken away from me. And I just lost it, and I was just like, no. And then I find out that the ending might have gotten changed without them even telling me. It's like, look, and I'm like, look, I was in the hospital for a heat stroke. Doesn't mean my phone doesn't work.
Right.
I can still answer a text. Yeah, you can still, and I told them that. And there's a certain part of the movie. Right before I left, I told the two actors, I'm like, look, when this happens, I want you to do this, and I want you to do that. Whatever he tells you, I don't want you to listen to. Just listen to me. And it got to the point, and then I have a friend who's a film historian, and he's written like 50 books on old Hollywood. And he's a wealth of information. And he's like, look, you have to go in there and you have to put your foot down with everything. You can't let people walk all over you. You have to go. We were both big wrestling fans, so he put it in this parlance. He said you got to go out there and pretend you're Stone Cold Steve Austin, not the Brooklyn Brawler.
Right, and you got to smell what you're cooking. The Rock
exactly, and it's usually brownies, but
they got to be some Ronomaniacs out there.
Exactly, brother. But look for my sex tape with my best friend's wife. No.
Well, you'll walk away with like $110 million.
I was already Googling. What are you doing?
There you go. But no, and it's like, so, I'm sure you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the life of an indie filmmaker. And it just kind of, and plus I have to have my day job, which is stressful as it is, because I got to deal with idiots that are like, oh, I'd like to check on the status of my Corvette. And it's like, imagine what I could do with that $89,000 you're spending on a car with a budget for a film.
That's true. Yeah, it's like
this last film was the biggest budget I've ever had, and it was $1,000. About $1,000.
There's actually a really good contest that they do. They'll do $100 movie, $1,000 movie, and then, or it's like $100 movie, $10,000 movie, and $100,000, or I forget the scale, but it's like a 10x thing. So they give this crew $100, they give this crew 10,000, or the same crew, and they try to make a movie and see who does the best movie, who uses the budget the best way, which is probably a little sneaky way for producers to figure out who to give money to so that they can save money.
Oh, of course.
but it's an interesting thing to see how creativity can patch the holes of a budget. Sometimes you've got all the money in the world and you make a water world out of it, and sometimes you've got
my first film back in 2010, we were shooting on a regular camera, but then it broke. And we're like, well, okay, it was like a little mini DV thing. It wasn't anything big. And it broke, and I'm like, well, what the hell are we gonna do? So I ran out to my car, and I went in the trunk, and I had an old flip cam. Remember flip cams?
I do remember flip cam.
Yes, and we shot the entire movie on a flip cam, and I'm thinking, I didn't think anything of it when I did. Back then, I was doing it because it was fun, because it was something cool to do. And then, the write-ups start coming in, and Dread Central takes interest in it, and then you decide to make another movie, and then another movie, and then all of a sudden, Fangoria writes an article about you, and you're like, well, maybe I should keep doing this. And then at one point you think, well, what is going on here? Am I being driven by wanting the accolades from people, or am I being driven because I want to make this?
Right. That's interesting. I was just having a conversation earlier about there are people who are, say, actors, and you can really tell that there are actors and then there are celebrities. There are people who like to be celebrated celebrities for being in movies and being in TV, and then there are actors like Bryan Cranston who are kind of both. But Bryan Cranston, you could tell this guy, for instance, there are many, like I think Meryl Streep is another one, who really like being an actor. They really like being the artist part. But there is a dichotomy of, and everybody wants to put their ideas in things, and as a director, I'm sure you've seen this, and I've seen this on set, just kind of hovering as a set photographer on commercials or something like that. But there's always, for instance, commercials have an agency, which is, an ad agency. They have the production company, and then they have the client. So there's like these three forces constantly pulling on whatever the outcome is. So sometimes the outcome is probably a lot less than it could actually be because of all of this pulling it in different directions. So it's funny, on set you'll be like, something will get approved by the director. The director's like, I love this. And then, the producer will run over and be like, we need to go put this in front of the agency to see what they think. And I think a lot of the times, and I hope nobody's listening that is a part of an agency right now, but a lot of times agencies will say a thing to potentially change the outcome of what's being shot, just so they can say something, just so they could feel useful on the day. And I see that happen all the time. And sometimes they go, instead of red, why not blue? And then that can just, they think they're contributing sometimes, right? But then, the writer, the director, everybody in the costume department, everybody's like, you want blue now? We thought, we envisioned this entire thing as red, and you're saying blue. Okay. So it can really just Othello the whole situation. Like, it can just flip everything and make it sometimes worse, I think, personally. So the difference, I guess, is between an auteur, a filmmaker like Quentin Tarantino, Leo Getz, who can really, he's really given carte blanche. People are like, well, you're Quentin Tarantino, and people like your movies, and it's kind of a built-in thing, so we'll just let you do whatever. But then there's other people who are parts of major studios who are constantly getting chopped down. Who is that director that was supposed to direct Ant-Man? And then he was...
Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright. He'd worked 4 years developing the Ant-Man movie.
You know what, though? He's still all over that movie, if you think about it, because there's no way that the guy who did Just Shut Up and Dance or whatever the hell it was, I don't know what it was, but there's no way that guy had the idea for the briefcase sequence where he's like, I'm going to disintegrate you, and it says, now playing Disintegration by The Cure. That is a total Edgar Wright joke.
That really is, yeah. But that's the thing.
I really want to see his new movie.
Yes, I saw the preview for that recently, and it looks good. It's got character, it's got personality, it's distinct, it's by an auteur, and those are.
And when you brought up the director, or not the director, but the actor versus celebrity, the perfect dichotomy there is you've got Tom Cruise as a movie star and a celebrity,
Yes.
and Gary Oldman is an actor.
Yes, absolutely. Those are, and Gary Oldman, every time I see him in anything, he's a different human being. Like, it's really uncanny. Like, it's freaky.
I don't care what anybody says, he was so good in Mank.
I haven't seen that one yet. One of my favorite performances.
It's on Netflix.
I will check it out. And what about Taylor Soldier Spy?
I haven't seen that. There's so much to see.
Yeah. And I remember,
but that's another thing. That's another thing. Is like you worry about like watching stuff before you make stuff, because I don't want to be influenced by that, and I don't want to be influenced by that. Like, for instance, I just binge watched when I was at work. I think Sunday I watched all of Midnight Mass, the new Mike Flanagan show, because it's only 7 episodes, and it is so damn good. Even if you're not into horror, there's just like all sorts of like family drama and weird dichotomies about like people in recovery and the whole thing. But that's the kind of thing I want to do. I want to do mini series that can tell the story over a long period of time, but not to the point where we got renewed for a second season. Why? There's nothing left to tell. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like the Haunting of Hill House and stuff like that.
Or the Queen's Gambit or something, where it's just this 7 episode. I played Dreamcast as it turns out that he's genuinely a creepy person. I think he's talking about when we were talking about Kevin Spacey. Yes, Kevin Spacey keeps coming out with those weird videos every year, and we're just like, we didn't ask for this, Kevin Spacey. Stop it.
Ange brings up Giancarlo Esposito. That man is a national treasure.
Yeah, he's great.
He's the one who is he's kind of like rode the line between celebrity and movie star.
Yeah, his personal vibe. I was watching this behind the scenes of. If you hadn't seen Breaking Bad, there's a very famous. It's basically the scene. Giancarlo Esposito is in the scene. I don't want to ruin it, but the point is, the boom. Like, the point is,
I know where you're going with this, but go on.
There's a great video for the behind the scenes of that. Vince Gilligan and Giancarlo talking about that whole sequence and how it was put together and how they shot it and stuff. And it's really great. And to see Giancarlo, who is, Ange, I totally agree. He is a guy who's just so into, how do I do this? How is Gus going to do this? How will Gus approach this? And he's just always thinking in that way. And, that's why I liked to see his character development in season 2 of The Mandalorian, because I feel like at the very end of season 1, when he first appears as, what's his character's name in Mandalorian? Moff Gideon. When he first appears, I feel like he's got a presence because he's Giancarlo, but the second season, I think the character was written a little bit deeper, and he really just has a whole unique take on how to be a Moff, and we don't get that flavor of Moff in Star Wars until Giancarlo's like, he's just his hubris and all of that. But
and the thing though is what I was thinking of is the whole part at the end of that sequence when he fixes his tie.
Yes. Yeah.
That was a total Giancarlo Esposito thing. He's like, well, I think he would get up and he would fix his tie. And like, okay. And now, I play Dreamcast, talking negatively about Nick Cage. All right. The thing about Nick Cage is you have to watch Leaving Las Vegas. It's what he won the Oscar for, and he deserved every inch of that gold statue for that movie. It is so good.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage is an interesting. What would he be considered? An anti-actor? He's an actor who is, when you hire him, you're going to get him. Like, it's an interesting approach that people use him.
I'd say character actor, but I don't think that's it.
Yeah, it's like there are certain actors, for instance, Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson is always gonna be Jack Nicholson.
Why he's the worst Joker?
You think he's the worst Joker?
Yeah, because he's already crazy, and he was also the worst Jack Torrance in The Shining. You know, that's not, well, Stephen King wanted somebody like Michael Moriarty, because you look at him, you don't immediately think he's going to go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Right. Interesting. That's an interesting take. Yeah. It's kind of on the nose to get Jack Nicholson. And he's always going to be the same. He's always going to be
It's okay, dear. He saw it on television.
and Christian Slater is always going to be Hack Nicholson.
Yeah, but he's amazing in True Romance. That is like my favorite movie next to the original Dawn of the Dead.
Yes.
I think that he is like, that movie is so good. Also, we are not beefing because wait till you hear who my favorite Joker is. It's not Heath Ledger, and it's definitely not Jared Leto.
It's Cesar Romero, clearly.
Clearly, no, it's Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill, okay. All right. Not Cesar Romero, but I like that you brought it full circle to True Romance, because Gary Oldman as Smiley Sweets or whatever his name is in that movie is
what was his name? He's really good. What, you think this is White Boy Day?
He is so insanely good in that movie. Drexel, that's it. And then he's the next year he's playing Lee Harvey Oswald, and you're like, wait, this is the same human?
And then he plays Winston Churchill, and then he plays Herman Mankiewicz, who wrote Citizen Kane, and it's like, wait, what?
I love it. And here's the cool thing that I have a theory, or at least I've noticed this about Gary Oldman, is that he has a different accent and or way of speaking every single role. He can play an English person. He's a British man. He can play a British man 10 different times, and he'll have 10 different accents. He will have a unique accent for every role he plays. Go back and look at his body of work. He never speaks the same way. It's uncanny and freaky.
And his breakout role was in The Professional?
The Professional. Oh man, that's going way back. That's way back. That's a great movie, True Romance, written by Tarantino and directed by Oliver Stone, right? That is
Tony Scott.
Tony Scott, that's right. Tony Scott, my bad. Oliver
and
Stone
the
did
visuals on that, the visuals on True Romance are just amazing. And I know the ending got changed from what Tarantino wanted, but not to the point where where Tarantino complained the way Oliver Stone ruined Natural Born Killers.
Yeah, he really did take it away from what Tarantino wrote. But so I think Tarantino has like a beef with Stone on that one. Interesting. Now we're talking about favorite Batmans, Bruce Waynes, and Jokers. I think I could probably Who's your favorite Batman? Who's your favorite Bruce Wayne? Who's your favorite Joker? That's a good one.
Evan Conroy and Mark Hamill. Done.
I Play Dreamcast says Bruce Wayne his favorite Bruce Wayne is Val Kilmer. Interesting. But his favorite Batman is Christian Bale. I think my favorite Bruce Wayne. I'm gonna have to really think about this because
If we go by live action, it's
let's go by live action.
It's the same for both. Michael Keaton.
I think Michael Keaton flipped on our head what we would think. Michael Keaton and Tim Burton changed the whole idea of how Batman was perceived, especially since the 60s when we had, oh man, I really do love Adam West. I do love Adam West.
You're biased though, because he's on your show.
Yes, Adam West. I mean, but he just had, I think he might be my favorite Bruce Wayne. Adam West. Because he sold for me that playboy rich guy. He seemed like, and that was the front. That's Batman's front. Not sure he's my favorite Batman, but he is close, and I am definitely biased. But let's see. Favorite Joker. I think it's probably, see, Heath Ledger, I remember not, like, it just was so unique when I remember watching that the first time that it took me a minute to absorb what he was doing. but it might actually be Heath Ledger as for Joker.
For live action, my Joker is Heath Ledger. But here's the thing: if we have to take Michael Keaton away and separate him, Christian Bale's my favorite Batman, but my favorite Bruce Wayne. Yeah. And this is a stretch, and I'm waiting to hear shit for this, but George Clooney, because he embodied Bruce Wayne far more than he did Batman.
Yeah, he was way more Bruce Wayne than Batman. Yeah, he was Bruce Wayne. See, he didn't separate the character because Bruce Wayne has to do that. He has to become Batman when he's Batman. So it's that's why I'm really excited to see Robert Pattinson's take on the character. Robert Pattinson. That movie looks like it might get a nice little angle on the whole thing because it doesn't really look like Batman Begins. And it looks like...
I think it's year one.
Yeah, the Batman year one, and he's sort of putting everything together. And so it'd be like a little bit... Where would that fall in the timeline? I guess right after Batman Begins. So as far as the development of the character.
It depends. Well, I mean... I don't know, but I guess they're already talking about a Penguin series for HBO Max, and they're already doing. It's already. I think it might be the first season might be done shooting for a Peacemaker series for HBO Max or Peacock or something. I forget.
I think it's Peacock. And yes, I heard the cast for that yesterday, and it sounded pretty insane. It sounded pretty intense.
All I know is I am so glad that Halloween Kills is going to Peacock and theaters. It's going to Peacock and theaters the same day because I was not going to a theater. And that's the thing is another thing I think screwed me up on the day when we were shooting is I don't know if I'm ready to be out in public like that. Yeah,
I've gone to the movies a couple times, but when we got seats, they were like way back and all the way in the back and in the corner. And we wore masks the whole time, but and we're vaccinated, but it's still, we just want to be as safe as possible. I saw Candyman a couple weeks ago.
I enjoyed that.
It was good. It was a solid telling of the urban legend, and I liked that they tied it all in together. They tied all. And
I don't live horribly far from where Cabrini Green was. Like it's maybe maybe an hour away, maybe.
Did you go say Candyman in the mirror?
Are you kidding me? I don't look in the mirror because then I'd have to see my face.
Candyman, you got a wonderful face, Ron, and impeccable timing, according to everyone here at Aristotle Full Throttle and specifically in the comments. Right, Ange says
Ange is just trying to flirt with me, and that's okay. I'll take it.
Venom 2 was supposed to come out on my birthday before they pushed it, and it was still on the fence about going then. Yeah, I'm still. That's why Friday. I still think The Matrix is. I'm gonna have the watch party right here for The Matrix Resurrections. Looking forward to that, and I don't know. I feel like it could go horribly wrong. I feel like the two Matrix sequels...
You know what's funny is I think that Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage or whatever it's called, is going to be better than Part 1 for the simple fact of who I found out who's directing it. I was shocked when I found out.
Andy Serkis.
Yeah, I was shocked when I found out Andy Serkis was directing it.
Yes.
I was like, I didn't know he directed, and then I found out he was directing that. I'm like, that's kind of perfect.
It really is. I mean, if he can apply... He's been the king of motion capture performance or performance capture. So he's kind of learned, I'm sure, a lot about directing because he's like the number one performance capture guy as far as, or at least most widely heralded. And yeah, it will be interesting to see how he brings his personality. Because what he brought to Claw, the character Claw, who was in 2 movies, right? In the Marvel Universe was so memorable and so fun. He just chewed the scenery in every scene, and you were like, okay, this guy is hilarious. And he brings so much to what he does.
But here's the question: is do you feel like maybe have you seen the new Planet of the Apes movies with him as Caesar?
I haven't seen the most recent one. I saw the first 2.
But he was amazing in it, and I honestly think that the Academy screwed him over by not nominating him for Best Actor as Caesar. Because just because it's mocap doesn't mean it's not him doing it.
That's the thing. I think that I really do think there should be a whole category, 2 new categories. One for performance capture team. I think that that's a legitimate like performance capture production, and you can include the actor, the effects artists, and all of the people working on that specific, because they give it to best VFX artists, so best costume department, essentially, the head of the costume department on this film. So there should be a best motion capture performance crew, and the actor should go up there and also accept the Oscar with that crew, because they're all working together to create that performance. Which, by the way, speaking of David Fincher, the Curious Case of Benjamin Button, I remember watching that movie going, Brad Pitt is not as good an actor as they're making his face do things in this. No. at the time. They adjusted Brad Pitt's face to emote in ways that I don't think I've seen him do before or since. And don't get me wrong, I think Brad Pitt is an incredible actor. I think he's he's become a really excellent actor, but has always been a celebrity. So it's funny because, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button was one of the first breakthrough performance capture pieces, I think. It was, 15 years ago? And they definitely, it's not, Brad Pitt's bringing what he can to the role, and then, David Fincher's adjusting that performance, and all of the visual effects artists are adjusting that performance. Also, editors win Oscars, and editors they're changing your performance. So many, I just want to go off on this for a second, but so many actors get so much credit for how they are in a scene with somebody when it's the editor creating that performance. A lot of unless it's like one long take and it's just a static shot, the editor is putting the timing, the editor's giving like a different reaction that the actor had in a different part of the scene and cutting that into later on and reacting to something that they weren't reacting to in that moment, but it works better for the scene. So the editor is really oftentimes, more often than not, creating the performance of the actor. The actor needs to bring these emotions and these beats and these feelings to what they're doing, but the editor is really the one making that happen. We end up seeing what the editor created. But what were you gonna say, Ron?
Oh, I was just gonna say real quick. I know you probably want to wrap this up, but can we talk about how big of a hypocrite Steven Spielberg is?
Why? What did he do this time?
Remember when he complained about Netflix movies getting nominated for Best Picture?
Yes.
And all of a sudden now he has a deal with Apple Plus. Hilarious. Or Apple TV Plus.
Well, also, maybe he's changing his mind.
For me, the thing for me is I would love to have, and this is like my goal, is to have one of my. Okay, it's a weird goal that works in one of 2 parts. Either I get a film in the Criterion Collection, and that allows me to get into the closet to go on a rampage with a bag, or I get to a point in my career where I've done something that they deem worthy enough that I can get into the closet and just unload into a bag. Because have you watched these videos of people in the Criterion Closet?
No.
They give you a bag. They give you a bag, basically. And they film you doing it, and you talk about the movies as you grab them, and you can put them in the bag, and you can take as much as you want.
That's awesome. I would love that.
That's my dream, is to get into that closet with a bag, a big bag. I might even just bring a box, like a tote, and be like, okay, I want the Zatoichi box set. That's 25 movies. I want the Godzilla box set. That's like 13 or 14. I want the Bergman box set. Actually, the Bergman box set would be the first thing I grab. Ingmar Bergman. It's 23 films, all remastered on Blu-ray. And it's like, and that's another thing that pissed me off, is you cannot.
That's a lot of Max von Sydow.
It is. It's a lot of the face. The thing is you cannot remake Bergman. You cannot. And then all of a sudden, I'm flipping through HBO Max. I'm like, oh, scenes from a marriage. Yeah, Jessica Chastain and Oscar. I already hate it. I know because it's a Bergman adaptation. It's like I already hate it. I don't even need to see it.
I just keep thinking Marriage Story. I keep thinking A Marriage Story, which I feel like I just watched.
That actually brings up my point: is that Roma, done by Alfonso Cuarón, is in the Criterion Collection
from 2 years ago.
Yeah, Marriage Story is, which was a Netflix thing. It's in the Criterion Collection. But then again, all of Noah Baumbach's stuff is in the Criterion Collection. Right. So
it's basically the supermarket sweeps of movies. So that's awesome.
I would love that. Like I'm looking at my shelf right now, and there are certain Criterions and they have amazing resale value. Like if I'm broke and I have to get some quick cash, I'll go to we have a place called Half Price Books here, and I'll bring the Criterion that I know I won't miss, and I'll walk out of there with like $60-$70. And so they have great resale value. But I keep my Chaplin. You know, I gotta keep my Chaplin, and I see my the cameraman from Buster Keaton's up there because that teacher I talked about, a friend of mine who's a film historian, he has an interview on there about Buster Keaton because he's a big Keaton guy. What else we got? Oh, The Irishman, all 3.5 hours of that.
I haven't seen that yet, but that's I would probably, I don't know, I'd probably just take all of Cronenberg. That's the first thing I could think of.
I'm trying to think what Cronenberg is in there. I know Scanners.
Wow,
I don't know. Rabid just got a release from Scream Factory though, so that's not going to be in the collection. But I think it's just that one. I'm not sure.
I would check it out for sure. I play Dreamcast as you thought it was one of his best performances. I think you might be talking about with Brad Pitt in Benjamin Button. Yeah, Brad Pitt is incredible in that. However, I think it's Brad Pitt's face that is incredible in that. I'm not sure if Brad Pitt was... Listen, I remember specifically in the movies going, that expression on his face is digitally manipulated. And so there's certain expressions that... And if it's David Fincher directing that movie, you know he digitally manipulated things for the timing and specifically, and maybe made his mouth curl in a different way and his eyes bigger than Brad Pitt perhaps did on that day. You know, because his whole face is like plastered on the different bodies that are performing in that movie. But
by the way, Ange, yes, it's Max von Sydow.
Yes, he's very Swedish.
But I just found out Cronenberg has 6 movies in the collection. He's got Crash, Dead Ringers, Scanners, The Brood, Videodrome, and Naked Lunch.
Naked Lunch, oh my goodness, that was a freaky movie and book. I play Dreamcast as the video editor works wizardry a lot of the time. As a former video editor, I know I can do a lot with raw footage. Speaking of that, and this is what I think, speaking of filmmaking and storytelling and artistic expression and artistic voice in what you're doing, Marsha Lucas recently. Marsha Lucas just trashed the Star Wars sequels and prequels. Trashed the sequels more than the prequels, but of Star Wars, because she saved Star Wars. She saved the original Star Wars by re-editing George's vision. And there's a really good geek out on Star Wars. A video, I'll share it on the Discord, but there's a YouTuber named Ben from Canada, and he's talking about, he really geeks out on Star Wars, the movie, and why it's a perfect masterpiece, and how he mentions Marsha Lucas really just going, look at the scenes, go on YouTube and you can look at the scenes that George Lucas had originally in Star Wars versus the Marsha Lucas edit, and you're like, this is so much better, and the story and the lore it changes. She actually has a huge hand on everything we know about Star Wars, and it's because of her editing and because she was using as far as the trench run, she made the trench run have the level of suspense that it has, and because they had so many effects shots, she came up with the idea of let's keep cutting back to the control room to have these little breaths, these little breathers before we cut back to the trench run in Star Wars. So there's like these moments of holding your breath and then cutting back to the footage of the generals and stuff, kind of trying to figure out what's going to happen next and their plan of attack and everything like that. And it's actually really, the pacing of the end of Star Wars is due to Marshall Lucas, and it's really such the blueprint for how to make a Hollywood blockbuster ending. It is the blueprint. And every movie, I think, since Star Wars has really tried to recapture that pacing and that feeling, and that every major Hollywood blockbuster action movie. I think she's one of those people who really influenced filmmaking.
It was unwatchable before she did anything.
Exactly. It was not quite, and I remember you've heard this story. Brian De Palma, Francis Ford Coppola, Steven Spielberg, they were all invited to the original rough cut of Star Wars. When George Lucas had finished filming it, he did a rough cut. He screened it for his friends, who were like some of the most influential filmmakers of all time. There was just this group of people, and they would all challenge each other in the 70s. And then they were like, Francis Ford Coppola's over here with friggin' The Godfather. You got Steven Spielberg over here with Jaws, these incredible movies that are just changing film as we know it. And then they're watching George Lucas's rough cut of Star Wars, and they're like, we don't get it. And Brian De Palma's like, you know what? You should keep everybody up to date with an intro scroll. You should, because the story starts in the middle, we should catch everybody up with maybe. And Brian De Palma wrote the opening scroll for Star Wars, which is really interesting.
No wonder it's so good.
That's why, because Brian De Palma's like, let me help you out in setting up this story, because we cannot figure out, George, what's going on in your brain. Even though you've described this to us, this movie doesn't tell us that. So let's get everybody up to speed. And then Marshall Lucas and all of these people. It takes a village to make a Star Wars, is what I'm saying. And
it takes a village to make a damn movie, period. And when you have to do it by yourself, like I said before, it gets very, very taxing.
Yeah, and that's why Shane Carruth only makes 2 movies ever. Because he does. Shane Carruth, of course.
That's why there's no more Alex. That's why we haven't seen any Alex Cox movies lately.
It will change you. It will take a lot out of you. Shane Carruth only did Primer and Upstream Color, and they came out like 10 years apart almost. And he wrote, directed, scored, edited, distributed everything. He's in the movies. He did everything top to bottom in those movies, and basically he's like, it just takes everything out of him, and he has to wait another 10 years before he makes another movie. But if
that's why Paul Thomas Anderson every 5 years. Look at the trailer for Licorice Pizza. It looks amazing.
It does look great. The thing I love about him, and we could probably let's talk about Paul Thomas Anderson on Auteurs tomorrow maybe, because there's a lot of people who hate Paul Thomas Anderson for the same reasons I like him. And they're like, he's so self-indulgent. He just lets his actors do whatever they want. And I'm like, that's cool to be. He gets actors. He gets how he goes for it. He swings for the fences. And when you swing for the fences, you get scenes like Alfred Molina in Boogie Nights, which is one of my favorite scenes in movies ever. If you get the chance to watch that scene 100 times like I have, do that, because there are just incredible moments in cinema, and that to me is one of them. That's movies, man. I love movies. How about you, Ron? You like movies? 420.
Hate them.
Yeah,
hate them.
Movies are great. Hate them. Can't stand them. But yeah, movies are. It's where we go to dream. It's where we go to make our dreams come true, and I think that's an important thing. Especially, it's just a human thing. Humans tell stories. Everything is a story. Songs are stories, movies are stories, and movies are the best way that we can share in a dream. Have you ever had a dream?
I gave up dreaming.
You gave up dreaming? Well, never give up. You know what Freddy Krueger says? Never stop dreaming.
That's right. And also, that's That's what John Bonham, the drummer for The Who looks like Prince, always says. Always never believe everything you read on the internet.
Exactly. You know, Captain Gandalf once said, I think we could do this forever.
Captain Gandalf once said on the bridge of the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah. Live long and play Dreamcast.
That's right.
Bruh. Well, thank you guys so much. This has been a fun, lively discussion. I love talking about movies with you guys. And Ron, your contributions they're indispensable. We appreciate it. We appreciate share with us your movies. Share with us your. We want to see those behind the scenes shots of Ron
I
directing.
bet you do.
Yeah, we do. It's like share them in the Discord. If you guys aren't on the Discord, remember you can always subscribe. That gives you access to the Discord, and we always talk all day long in there. Just share things. I'm excited for the movies coming out. I'm definitely gonna go see Halloween Kills. That's my next.
It looks like a bloodbath.
It just looks so great. I mean, I love the fact that it's the same night. It's the same Halloween night because it's got to take place on Halloween night, and it looks like it's just gonna be one long movie between Halloween and Halloween Kills. Halloween 2018. So it's gonna be interesting. Yeah. So it's like it's the same night. He just gets. I love it though. It feels organic. It feels like if you didn't burn the house asunder, if you didn't make sure that that Michael Myers was dead, then that was your mistake. That was definitely
right. All right, I'm gonna hop out while you finish up your stuff. We'll talk soon.
I said good day!
I said good day. Good day, sir. Ron,
Yes, good
you're
day.
always welcome.
I said good day.
Thank you so much for joining us. And folks at home, remember, never stop dreaming. Follow your dreams. Always eat ice cream. It's delicious. It's really. Don't listen to what the doctors say. It's great. It's good for you. Eat as much as you want. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This is not a science program. All right, Ange. Play Dreamcast, everybody. 420 artists, everybody. Sorry, 420 artists, we didn't get to you. We was just on a roll. But please chime in. We'll talk soon. Bye, everybody.